We all have those piano parents, those music parents who we love, who are the best part of your studio, who are everything you want them to be. This is Macy's description. My model parents help with listening assignments. Students fill out a worksheet after listening to a classical piece. Some parents listen and help, others complain and act like it's a crazy request. So that is just one example, right, of how someone can be a great music parent for you or not so great. The other basics that you might be looking for in your model parents are that they pay you on time, they don't complain about fee increases because they think you're worth it, they love what you do and how you do it so they don't interfere with the pedagogy, they support what you're doing, they help with practice at home, including filling in listening worksheets, they do all the things you want them to do, and you just wish you could put them in a lovely cloning machine and create lots of other parents just like them. Well, let's see how we can make that more likely, shall we? Okay, I think this is all about understanding the phases that a parent goes through when they come into your studio. And if they go through all of these phases in alignment with how your studio runs and your philosophies of teaching, they become that model music parent, or you give them the best possible likelihood, best chances of them doing that. So the first stage is the self-selection stage. Self-selection. No, I don't want you to go through and cherry pick different parents. But we do want our parents to self-select. If, say, your website is the main place that you attract students, well, when your ideal piano parent lands on your site, what are they going to think? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Or if it's a flyer, or if it's a Facebook group, or wherever you market, wherever people come across you that isn't just a referral, what are they going to think? Here's what you want your ideal parents to think. That's me. That's for me. I can see myself. That is me. Even they won't do this consciously, of course, but they see things on that page and the description of your studio sounds just what they were looking for. What they didn't even know they wanted to look for. It's there. Right? So an example of this in my studio is parents arrive on my site, which is colourfulkeys.ie. If you want to look at the studio side of things, it's always open to you because I know it's useful for teachers to look through. When parents arrive on my site, if they are an ideal parent for my studio, and this doesn't have to mean pigeonholing your studio, okay? It's just about understanding some of the common characteristics in the parents who do really well in your studio. If a parent arrives on my site and they are someone who took piano lessons as a child for like 2 years and then quit because their teacher wouldn't let them learn any pop music and they found music reading really difficult, they quit. And then in their teens, they took up guitar or maybe piano again, but they learned it their own way and they played chords and they got into a band and that has continued being a part of their life. And now they have a kid. When they arrive on my site, they say to themselves, oh my gosh, this is nothing like what I had as a kid, and it is what I always wanted but I didn't know could exist. Now that's not the only type of piano parent I want to attract. I'm just giving you an example of someone who would be an ideal fit for my studio because they're slightly unconventional, they love music, they place a huge value on it, and they don't know what the better way is, but they know there's a better way. A lot of these parents read my about page, which goes through my own journey and how I think it's pretty wild that I didn't know that anyone could improvise outside of the jazz world until I had already graduated through all of the grades and etc. You can read the about page. Many parents read that and they say that was me. Or that describes so much of my experience and that's what I don't want for my child. So this self-selection phase is about the parent who's not for me. Okay, so that is the parent who really wants their child to take lessons because they want them to have the grades, because they believe that's an advantage on your CV or for the Leaving Cert, which is our school exams here, or for some other reason that is academic and about the pieces of paper. They arrive on my site and they see everything we're doing. It's not for them. They're going to go away and they're going to find a beautiful, wonderful quality classical studio that is near me. So if that parent comes along and they see my site, if they want this exam-based experience, if they're all about results in terms of numbers and the academic side of music, this isn't the right fit for them. So maybe that is the parent you want, but maybe it's not. Maybe you're like me, maybe you're somewhere else, maybe you've got some other expectation. Whatever it is for you, you want your parents, your potential parents, to self-select, to figure out that this is the right fit for you, for them, or not. Okay, the second stage then is anticipation. So this is where the parent has arrived on your site and we're moving down what we would call a marketing funnel, if you're familiar with that term. So they've come to your site. This is for them. They are that parent who says, yes, that resonates so much with me. This is exactly what I want from my child. Then there's the anticipation phase. And this is the phase where they apply to your waiting list or they email you to inquire, and then they get an email back from you. Maybe they get some information from you. Maybe you set up an interview. During that phase, we need to build the anticipation and affirmation that this is a good fit for them. They were right. And that's through little touches. That's just through little things in their email, that in the emails you send to them or the text you send to them or whatever way you communicate. That's little touches that say, yep. So if you know what your studio stands for, you can put those little touches in. One of the things my studio stands for is being inclusive of parents of all backgrounds who didn't study music, who didn't have friends who study music, or who did. So one of the things I put in my initial emails is my information about how to choose their first instrument. And it's written in friendly language, simple to understand, and it encourages them to reach out to me. Putting that in is about saying to them, yeah, it's about informing them about the correct type of instrument, sure. But putting that in that language is about saying to them, you're welcome here, no matter who you are. And I'm not going to throw jargon at you because that's not who I am. Right? So I'm not going to just say weighted keys and not explain to you why that's important in simple language that you can understand. I'm your guide and I'm here to help you through whatever level of music you have yourself. Once you have reached the interview or the meeting, the first lesson, if you jump straight into first lesson, it's about the expectation phase. So we had anticipation, now we have expectation. And this is about you conveying to them what your expectations are of them and them learning what to expect of you. And a lot of this for me is communicated at that first meeting because that's where you can have a face-to-face conversation and make sure that they understand what's going on. The expectation phase, I think, is the one that a lot of us actually get right. If you're doing a meeting with new parents, you're probably doing this pretty well. You're laying out what's expected of them, supporting practice, buying the right kind of instrument, all the things. And then you're explaining to them how your studio works. We have this many recitals. This is how I communicate practice. If there's anything you feel that parents might not know, and don't assume they know anything from instinct or from common sense, right? So if there's anything that runs a certain way in your studio, make sure you're laying it out at that first meeting or in the first few communications or at the first lesson or all of the above. So we've had self-selection, anticipation, and then expectation. Now we get to the stages that people often I don't want to say fail. I can't come up with another word that we often fail at. And I'm going to put myself in that bracket, okay, to soften the blow. I have failed at this in the past. You can recover, but it's hard. So this is the most important part to pay attention to. And this is what we call onboarding. Now, onboarding just means when someone joins your studio, in this case, when someone signs up to your business, what is the process they go through from being a new customer to being one of your regular customers. So in our studio, that's the first few months that a new parent is in your studio. And the onboarding process needs a lot of thinking out, because it's not just about what other businesses would be worried about. They'd be thinking about retention, basically, getting more money from this customer. And a big part of that in many businesses is keeping them around, making them a repeat customer. That's important for you too. But onboarding for us is also about parent education and laying the foundations for that student becoming a lifelong learner. I know it sounds weighty. It sounds like a lot to place on the first few months, but it matters and it does make a difference. So that onboarding process, it consists of many things. It includes the lessons and the small little touches you have with parents, like talking outside the door or a few minutes here or there or little phone calls. But I like to have this as a onboarding email sequence as well, so that you can be sure every parent gets the same information. So we have a fully laid out set of emails that you can use. So members, and if you're not a member, that's how you sign up. But members can go to the Essential Email Templates course. Just go to Courses, Essential Email Templates, and you will see the fully laid out process. It will also give you full instructions there of how to set it up in Gmail, if you're using Gmail, or in MailerLite, which is free automated email software that I use myself in my studio. So that onboarding process is where you take all of that expectation and the anticipation of what the parent thought they wanted in your studio, and you bring it to life. Because the expectations that were set at that first meeting, they can disappear. I mean, imagine having that first meeting yourself. You go in there, somebody tells you, let's say you're going to do pet training with your pet, okay? And you go into that first meeting and they lay out, okay, so here's what you do, here's how you practice every day, here's what to do if your pet just won't cooperate one day, here's what to do at our weekly training lessons, etc., 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 including all the business stuff, how you pay us, late penalties, everything, and a tour of the pet center. So you have that first meeting. Do you remember all of that information and put it into action? I mean, no. You might get most of it if you were really diligent and paying attention, but what if, you were sleepy that day? Maybe you miss all of it. Or maybe there's just one aspect and you miss that out, and that was the most important thing, as it turned out. You miss out that they said, never take your pet off the lead on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. And you just miss that part, but that is what it all hangs on. I know that sounds silly, but there's things like that in music lessons that we go through that if a parent doesn't get it and it's never followed up, that's a huge risk to that child continuing in music. So that onboarding email sequence is really, really wonderful for your parents to make sure they really get settled in. And then after that, you have the long tail. And that is where you continue to reinforce this stuff less frequently over time. And I said these last two are where we all fall down, right? Yeah, this one is where we really all fall down. Even if you have a great onboarding sequence already, maybe you never remind people about these things again, and they need telling again and again because things change. Even if they remember them, it means something different to a parent of a student who's in their third year. So these reminders again and again are really useful. One of my best tools for the long tail and ensuring parents are on the same page that I think they're on is a parent workshop. I've started doing them in the last few years, and it's an opportunity for parents to come along and I give them some information and some training, and we go through some practice strategies. But really it's a chance for me to gauge how much they're getting, how much makes sense to them already, and how much is new, and for them to ask any questions, not just of me, but of other parents, right? So those are our sequences. And if you lead parents successfully through all of that, and they feel fully supported through that whole process of self-selection, anticipation, expectation building, first impressions at that first meeting and everything like that, onboarding, and then the long tail, that is where you start to develop that wonderful piano parent, whether that's to do with business or pedagogy or practice or anything else in between.